Okay, yay! Finally, we're able to get all together. Okay, so Kristen, you obviously know Marilyn and Allison. You are like our go-to for Allison and me with your parenting wisdom, since you're a counselor. So I'm glad we are all able to get together. Really, no real like agenda or structure here, other than I just think it'd be awesome if we all share and let people in kind of on our conversations that we have about parenting. And Marilee, you've given us so many helpful tips, since
Yeah,
you.
Kelly, I feel like this was really prompted because we had this ongoing text chain with myself and the twins we all have toddlers, and we're always like, okay, this is what happened today. Kristen, what would you have done? Kelly gives me advice. I tell them what I did. It's usually wrong. I'm just kidding. But then Marilee, like Kelly and I had this conversation with Marilee as well. And she has this like wealth of knowledge, as you can imagine, about all things, child rearing. And so we thought we just need to like get all of us together and share wisdom. And, we don't claim to have all the answers, but it's nice to just have some wise people coming in and helping us all. It takes a village.
Yeah. So, Kristen, I mean, I know like we've talked about so many things, and we could end up doing a few of these calls if they're well received. But I mean, just covering simple things that have helped us so much, like remembering that like connecting with your child is like so important, and like the power of eye contact, of getting on their level, of trying to turn things into play, since play is the language of the child, instead of just trying to control them and say do this and expecting that they understand things the way we understand, and all of that. So
kind of what our parents were told was the best method. I mean, let's be honest,
Well, yeah, that's what I was going to say. I mean, honestly, it's not really intuitive. Our parenting isn't intuitive to the degree that the research shows you're likely to parent how you were parented. And so you say, Kelly, connected parenting and play and all of that. But that's honestly something that I've had to learn. I think y'all have had to learn. You follow blogs and certain people and podcasts. We've kind of had to learn, oh, this is actually how a child's brain works, and this is what we're working with. And so I think the biggest thing that I would want to say right now, especially in light of what's going on, is to not feel shame if you don't, like you're the worst parent ever if you act out in a way that you wouldn't have, especially right now under all this stress.
they want to hit them, and you're like,
yes,
scream.
Yes, and that for me is stuff, as a counselor, obviously I've gotten training and gotten exposed to research that has been so helpful for understanding really the mindfulness that we need to all be taking right now, be extra aware of. Because when you do want to scream and grab your child or even spank them, we need to look at ourselves in that moment as the parent. It can feel like I'm doing this because my child made me do this. In reality, they're not making you do it. There's something in you that they triggered that you are then reacting on, and your defenses are up. Your fight, flight, and freeze is activated. And so you're wanting to fix something inside of you, maybe not even realizing how much you're taking it out on your child in a disproportionate way. It might not be.
That's so like, it's so obvious to me, because when I'm tired, I have such a shorter fuse. And so like clearly when I'm like exhausted and frustrated, then I'm more likely to like want to react in that way.
And the great key to realizing that, and that awareness and mindfulness, is also think about your children. When do they have a lot of their tantrums? When do they scream more? When they're tired, when they're hungry. So using that as a parent, using that empathy, that ability to understand, and to say, instead of stop screaming, I can't handle it, which I've been there. We all kind of have to just scream, like in frustration, we get there. But when you can take some deep breaths and say, wow, you're really screaming. Wow. Wow, that's really loud. Wow, you must be really mad. And you stay calm, you stay neutral. You're teaching them that feelings come and that feelings go, and we can ride this wave out. You staying calm as a parent is one of the most positive things you could do for your child, not only in that moment, but also long term. You're teaching them emotion regulation skills that will follow them for a lifetime. So the trick right now, especially I think in light of what's going on, it has really a lot more to do with us as parents than it does with kids.
Yeah,
But yes, there are certain strategies that we absolutely need to kind of, I think, add to our tool belt right now.
Yeah, for sure.
It's a perfect example. I mean, so I'm going through a stage where we're transitioning with my toddler from she's dropping her nap, but I still want to implement this rest time. So yesterday I was more rested. I had received some good news. Things in my life were going well. And she didn't want to cooperate, but I was so much more patient. I could even feel myself being such a good parent. This is like, I'm doing this really well right now. Like, she's being so annoying and I am just nonplussed. I'm going to take her up the stairs for the 6th time and fulfill the requests and, all the things. Today she pulled the same thing and I didn't act the same way. That's all I'm going to say.
So that's the great thing too about the parenting information that's out there now. I think in a lot of ways, hopefully we've moved away from, the spanking and the forceful coercion, getting your child to be compliant, because research shows you can do a quick Google search on spanking. The outcomes are just not positive. It leads to negative outcomes. It leads to, it does not help them become more compliant. It does not, it actually leads to more aggression. If you think about it, it makes sense. You're modeling hitting is okay. So anyway, so I think a lot of the research now though talks about, and Dan Siegel is a big person who talks about repair. So like Allison, we talk about this all the time. We all encourage each other as moms, which I think is a good message we need to get out, especially in this time where community is harder. You still need your people that you can text and call and vent to, like we all do. But when you lose it because you're going to, you can then repair in a more calm way, in a calm setting later on, where both you and your child are. I think I've told y'all how with my 2.5-year-old one time, I was so frustrated. Nothing makes me more mad than when she hits the baby. And I, in that moment, have to really regulate myself because I want to lose it. So I do. I raise my voice. I, squeeze her kind of hard, those kind of things. And she cries because she feels fear, and the look on my face and all those mirror neurons are activated. Anyway, when I calm down, I then, go and hold her on her bed, because touch is so important. Deep pressure is very calming. Cuddle and say, Mommy was so frustrated earlier, and I'm so sorry that I raised my voice. That was not okay. But I'm going to get frustrated sometimes. That does not mean that I don't still love you. I will always love you. Did you know that I can love you and be frustrated at the same time? Did you know that? And she goes, no, I did not know that. And then she just laid her head on me and wanted to cuddle some more and say, you're better now, Mama. You're better. It's like,
yeah.
Yes.
I love Jennifer Kolari's connected parenting. She talked a lot about that. And yeah, just like, you're going to lose it. And so if you can model that to them, then that can be a positive thing.
Yeah.
And just to go back to earlier about like being so calming, Janet Lansbury has talked about like being the calm amidst their storm. And just that little like phrase always helps me so much, because like you're saying, like if she's hungry, if she's tired, or if she just watched a bunch of TV or just whatever, if I can kind of like let her ride through the emotional storm that she's having and be that like calm, grounding anchor, the difference is night and day when I do that versus when I get escalated to, then it's just, we both lose it and it's just not good for anyone.
Yeah.
So Kristen, I agree, Kelly. Kristen, going back to her hitting the baby, what would you have done? What is the right way to handle that? Because that's a really real thing. I mean, as we, in fact, Kristen and I both have children the exact same age apart, like around 22 months. And I'm sure many of you guys listening are in the same boat. You know, you have 2 toddlers. So what is the best way to handle that? You know, if you were to handle that perfectly, like the older one being aggressive towards the younger one.
Well, first of all, I would say get perfectly out of your vocabulary, because that's not a realistic expectation. And that's what brings on the shame, is when we have that expectation that we need to do it perfectly. So I would say really what you want to be looking for is, and again, going back to mindfulness and awareness, pay attention to what's going on. What was that trigger? For instance, this happened yesterday, and my 2-year-old hit the baby because I was on the phone when we were all on the ground playing together, and I thought she was fine, but she wanted me to get off the phone, and then she just hit the baby. So obviously I could tell, you know, she wanted my attention. That was a way for her to seek attention. Obviously I would say you go to the offended party first. You make sure the one who was hurt is okay. So I pick up the baby, make sure the baby's okay. But then you, depending on how regulated you are in that moment, I think, you know, you have some options. If you're so frustrated that you're worried you're going to hit that child right back, then you need to just step away and say, mommy needs a break. I will come back in a minute. And that's the safest thing to do right now. And if they are left on the floor crying and screaming, that's okay, because you need to get away. If you have the capacity within you to stay there and remain calm and have a conversation, and they're in a calm, regulated enough state to be able to receive that information, then I think you could obviously have that conversation. I cannot let you do this. And this happens a lot, where I say, I cannot let you hit the baby. And my daughter has now started saying back to me what she knows she can do, because I've given her that language. So she looks at me yesterday and goes, I can hit the floor, I can hit the pillow. And so it turned into a proud moment where I saw her look within herself to find a solution to that problem. So
that's where I feel like the intuition almost kind of has to take the back seat, because I think, like, humanly speaking, we're like, wait, you just inflicted harm on my baby, like, and you think, well, if I just sit here calmly and try to explain to a toddler that I won't allow them to do this, it doesn't feel like I am giving the just punishment that they deserve. And that's something that I struggle with all the time. And I think it's because we as parents always feel the need to give lessons and to correct. Yeah. And while that is wonderful, it's not the right time. And that's something that I've really struggled with. And I mean, before bedtime, when you're in those cuddle, sweet, high endorphin moments and they're really listening, like, that's a good time for talking about something you wanted to correct earlier. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Yes, no, absolutely. I mean, yesterday when this happened, I felt it. She was well okay, going on, being happy and whatever, and that made me even more mad.
Yes, they got away with it.
You don't realize what you just did. Exactly what you're saying, Allison. So again, I know I am like just drilling this in, but the mindfulness piece, I had to check myself. I had to be like, because I kept wanting to bring it up and be like, but you really do know you cannot hit your brother. And she's like way long gone, like not thinking about it. So I had to check myself and be like, okay, I want justice or something. So, but I need to get this feeling out of my body. And that's where I knew, for me, I needed movement in that moment. So I had an older adult in the home. So I had someone to watch the kids, and I said, I'm just going to go outside and run some laps in the yard for 10 minutes. And I did. I ran, took off my shoes, so I got some grounding in while
Love it.
I was running, killed two birds with one stone. So I grounded and ran and just had a really.
But see, this is kind of where like outsiders could say, and I've heard this before when reading Janet Lansbury and Dan Siegel and all the people, that this type of parenting can almost look like mealy, or we're not doing enough, or you're letting your child get away with it, or just wait until they're teenagers. And, but as research shows, the hitting and the spanking, while that can look like, man, like that's some great parenting, you're really putting them in their place, you're teaching them a lesson, like long term, the former is paying off. So
well, I loved in Jennifer Kolari's Connected Parenting, something that really stuck with me is talking about how their frontal lobe is undeveloped. And Kristen, Marilyn, you probably can speak to this too. But so I always remind myself that, like, she doesn't know how to regulate her emotions. Yeah. Like, she's having a moment, and Kristen, one of y'all said, just kind of watching her, letting her go through her emotions. And like, I find if I can just give her a hug or give her that touch, or like, it just helps her calm down, and then she can get to a state, that we can actually talk, or she can apologize or whatever. But it's like, you have to remember, like, she's a child. Yes, she should know better, but sometimes, like, her body, like, she doesn't literally know how to regulate it and control it. And so just helping her calm down and take down that fight or flight can be huge too. So.
Yeah, I think you have to be careful though, Cal, because I think sometimes we can lean too much on the
I probably am too.
Side. I mean, I do that. I know kind of all of us can tend to do that maybe. And we do need to recognize that they can regulate themselves. We just need to look for what Dan Siegel calls the window of tolerance, and help them so that they don't get overwhelmed or underwhelmed, but that they're receiving the feedback and information, they're able to take it all in and optimally act on it in a way
when they regulate their emotions and feeling, like if they're having like a meltdown when they're really hungry.
Our job is to help expand that tolerance. So like if they never get I mean, I see what you're saying. Like if she can't regulate.
Sometimes like if she's throwing a fit and it's almost time for dinner, I'm just like, we just kind of ignore it, let her throw her fit, and don't get upset with her. Just be like, I'm sorry you're sad, or yeah, just keep crying, And then it's like once we get food in her, she's like a new happy child.
Totally.
So that's what I guess I'm saying. Like sometimes like either like knowing that she needs like a hug sometimes, or knowing that she just needs to like have her meltdown and I'm not going to get in the way and tell her.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's different. I think what you're saying is, helping your child by knowing what helps them stay regulated, like the food and calming down, or, giving them a few minutes, all that. But recognizing that they can regulate themselves. We actually want them to regulate themselves because that is a skill they need to have. If we as the parent are always jumping in to regulate for them with too many like distractions or, threats or bribes, here's a cookie, stop crying, then they don't learn to look within themselves to regulate. But what you're saying about Jennifer Kolari is that the brain is not the same. And that is what I think a lot of our parents, we need to remember. That's what's most helpful, I think, to me, is recognizing, okay, I'm dealing with a 2-year-old or whatever child you have. If they're below the age of 25, they do not have the same brain you have. They do not have the same ability to inhibit and motivate and all that stuff. That they don't have the same frontal lobe capacity that we do. So I totally agree in that sense.
Marilee, sorry, we're like, all in our toddler world, but like I know you've shared a lot, like when Douglas was sick, he was all over the map, obviously his brain was going through different stages under different chemical exposures and stuff. I mean, just as he, was going through those times, what are some of the big lessons you learned? Like how to control him or?
I probably, in light of this discussion, would rather kind of shift back to when he was little, a toddler, like your kid's age, because I can relate to all that you're saying. It's so important to look at how old they are. And I love what Kristen said earlier, just, sometimes when you have an unexpected response, like, wow, you are really angry. That kind of, startles them and gets them in a whole new, space. And when I had my son, I had read every book I could get a hold of that Maria Montessori wrote. And she was very big on the child having his own inner control, inner self-discipline, like we're kind of talking about, that regulatory ability, instead of it coming from outside. And the way you interact with them, increases that more and more. So with my son, when he was born, and this is part of our story, I was on the standard American diet, and we had a lot of trouble with him, very miserable, etc. But it was always important to me to always look into his face, look into his eyes, establish that love, letting him know I love you, and I was trying to understand, the situation, whatever, no matter if he was doing something right or wrong, I wanted to come at him in a position of strength, in control myself, like you all are talking about, with that assurance to him that he was worthy, he was loved, and that, maybe this was not acceptable, but I would show him, in whatever way I needed to, what was needed. Now, I very much had this way of dealing with him. Once he got to the point where he understood, 2.5, 3, that they understand, they can understand commands. If I had given a directive like, you may not, let's just say, hit the baby, and I knew he understood. Now, again, you have to look at the emotional level, etc. Then there was never ever a time, and of course, there was never a time that I would say, if you do that again, you're going to be in trouble. It was something he knew he could not do again. So I would go to him if he would do something like that and pick him up, sit him down, look him in the face, and just describe the fact that he knew he was not to do that. And then whatever I had decided as, the he would have, a timeout or whatever, but very quickly, a lot of behaviors can be extinguished if you're consistent, and you can do it with love and in a positive way. And that's,
like have your chair. Okay, do you need to go take a moment in your chair,
Yeah, tell us, Marilee, about the no-no chair, because I know you've talked about how it can be magical with your grandchildren. That's something that I'm struggling with. Like, I went through a phase where I thought, okay, I'm going to try this timeout thing, but then I found that I was relying on it too much, and it almost became just like kind of a quick go-to, and so we stopped doing it. But recently, during coronavirus, timeout became a thing again. So I don't know. I'm still trying to figure out. And like you said, consistency is key. And sometimes I personally struggle with like, gosh, I want to be consistent with the right thing.
Well, and that's important, because every child is different, and what will cause them to stop and reflect might be one thing for one child and one for another. I hate to, say this is how you would do it. Right. But in my case with my son, it was very clear to him that if I put him in this chair, that he would be there and sit there until I told him he was able to get up. And it worked very well. He did not want to go to that chair. Now,
so in the beginning, or to get there, because like I find, okay, Reed she'll come out. Like I'll do that, but she won't stay in. So the times when this is making me realize I need to do this more, because the times when I just like am quiet, neutral, I just look at her, pick her up, go put her back in her chair. Then actually I can get her to stay longer or whatever. But sometimes I just like let her come out. I'm like, whatever, I'm in the middle of doing something. And so I probably need to get better at that.
You may be so young that you have to stay there with her. You know, I mean, you can't.
Yeah, or sometimes, yeah, I'll sit and talk with her. But now she's just like, no, I don't want to talk to you. Stop talking to me.
Right. But
yesterday it was, I said, hi, Sloan. She goes, I didn't want you to say that to me right now.
Yeah. But okay, well, but also, so one thing that's important, obviously, is consistency. And then I found like the whole staying neutral and just like calmly, quietly, like even if I have to just take her back to her room or take her back to her chair, that really helps. And then, oh my gosh, sorry, just lost my train of thought. We can edit this.
Well, as you think about that, Kristen, what is your take on like, because, you know, there's a lot of talk now about don't do time out, do time in, and you sit with them. And then I've tried that, and Sloan's like, sweet, I love time in. I get all mom's attention. We'll leave Francis aside. I'm like, wait, screw time in.
Yeah, I mean, I think Marilee said two things that are really important. You have to know your individual child, so it's not a one size fits all, and you have to take into account their age and what's developmentally appropriate for you to expect of them. So
right.
To expect a 2-year-old or whatever to stay by themselves for 20 minutes is just like absolutely ridiculous. So expectations, I think, are big. And also, Kelly, no, I lost my train of thought.
No, I really can't remember what mine's gone. I'm trying.
Go ahead, Marilee.
I was going to say, I had the privilege of teaching children in inner city schools, very rough neighborhoods, and also in very affluent neighborhoods, young children from kindergarten through in elementary school. And of course I had my one child, and I just found across the board that kids are really looking for stability, consistency. That they want to know that they cannot go around and tear up the house and all that. They want boundaries. Yeah. And the more comfortable they feel, the more secure, the more you show that you love them, etc. It just establishes a rapport. And I remember going into a first grade in an inner city school, and I'm first year teaching, and I'm told, oh, this is going to be really tough. And I have this class of the cutest little kids. I walked in, I'm just in love in just a second. And I mean, they were testing me from the very second. But it was so beautiful because I got with each child, and like I said, that eye to eye, looking at
and on their level,
really close, and had what I'd say a one-on-one conference with every one of them, and established, I think I was really speaking from the heart, wanting them to know how much I loved them. I wanted to teach them, I wanted to love them, I wanted to be fun, etc. We had a wonderful class. It was just,
that's what that whole Jennifer Kolari Connected Parenting Mirror Neurons podcast is all about. And that's why I loved it. And it's so important for obviously connecting with and communicating with anyone, but especially children, and just establishing that as the foundation. Yeah. And then go ahead, Marilyn.
Well, I was just going to say that there were teachers that were, older, etc., and they really did not like their job. They did not like the school they were in. They did not like the situation. They could not control their kids. And I think that one of the things is the kids can feel that.
Mm-hmm.
And
They are so that is something I've seen. They are so perceptive of just the energy and environment. I mean, Georgia, the baby will cry if Reed starts crying. If Reed gets angry and something, Georgia will just all of a sudden cry because it's just like changes. I don't know. It's really interesting, and I've seen that too. Just when I force myself to take a deep breath and stay calm, then they both calm down. But if I escalate, then they escalate.
So I'm just going to bring one more point here that I'm going to sort of pull back because I can go on and on just like all.
I can talk about this forever.
All of us.
It is critical when with your child, with any child, to establish right and wrong. I mean, I know we're talking here about being, gentle parenting, etc. But it is our key to create, as soon as they're ready, to understand when they are actually doing something that is not acceptable. Because that's where that stability comes. And that part of the reason so many people will say, oh, I have this willful child. They are a strong-willed child. Yes, strong-willed children are everywhere. They're all trying to establish a lot. But you are the adult, and you need to find a way in love to establish yourself enough with them so that they feel enough stability that they are going to start restricting themselves. And consistency, I have found, is the most beautiful, quick, least painful way.
Yeah. That and Marilee, so after a conversation you and I had before, I found, because Reed can obviously, she's like 3 going on 13, and can be strong-willed. But playing off of what she's, letting her kind of lead. And so she starts like crying where I know it's fake. Instead of me getting like mad or frustrated, I was just like, oh my goodness. And I'll start like mocking, crying with her. Then she starts laughing, and then it turns into like this playful, funny thing. And I know from other times that if I like just brush her off or get frustrated, it doesn't end the same. And so that's been really helpful for me. Just like that playful creativity. Kristen, you shared a lot. I want you to share your story about Alice because it's so cute with the cell phone. Just imagination and like just trying to bring play into it as much as I can. I've really been trying to do that over the last few weeks, and I just see that when I'm able to do that, it really does help so much. Like even just like when we're on our walks and I'm so ready to get home, instead of just be like, Reed, come on, we have to get home. Like I got to feed the baby or I got to start dinner. Instead, I'll just be like, okay, let's race. Like who do you think can get home the fastest? Like I'm going to get you, those kinds of things. And then all of a sudden we're home and I'm not having to like deal with her getting upset. So
I'm sure a lot of people have heard of the book How to Talk So Kids Will Listen, but there's another one that's How to Talk So Little Kids Will Listen. Oh, is that how to talk? Anyway, I found that in terms of what you're talking about, Kel, and the playful aspect, it does such a good job. It gives like kind of these cartoon clips to just help like parents remember like some of the go-to things about play. And the biggest feedback that this, who's the author? Is it Joanne
Faber?
Yeah, Faber's daughter, though, I think. Anyway, but she was saying that she's teaching this class, and that a lot of the parents were like, exactly, yes. I had it dog-eared, like so many, and highlighted. But a lot of the parents in this class she's teaching, which the book is based off of, are basically like, this is so exhausting. I don't want to play all day. Like, I'm done with this. But actually what's more exhausting is the nagging and the constant reminding.
Either way.
Yeah, I mean, so fake it till you make it. Like I've just started to really using the play does help.
Kristen, share your story about the imagination. I mean, the cell phone thing with Alice. You're like, here's your cell phone.
I mean, I just learned to interject play like this any way I can. It's definitely stretched, my creative mind, having to get out of being a very practical parent. I think those of us who are type A or not me, but other people who are type A and very practical are really going to have to stretch themselves if they're having issues with kids like this to get on board with what we're talking about. But I think there was one night I was telling y'all, like, it's just so cool how this is like magic. Like Alice was just fighting me on changing her diaper, and I said, did I say that I was going to change her diaper? No, I meant Peter Pan. Or, did I say Daddy was going to change her diaper? No, Peter Pan. And then, she was Tinkerbell and I was Wendy and we were the whole crew, whatever, and was just laying there still so compliant. And then same thing for getting in bed that night. I was telling y'all that, she wanted me to sing one more song or look at pictures, or I forgot even.
Everything.
I said, oh, here's your phone. Here, you can look at videos on your phone right here. I literally just pulled out of the air like this and just handed it to her. But she just took it and received it, and I walked out and there was no screaming or anything. But I think that's where knowing your child, but also we have to know that a lot of that is equipping your child. So I think one of the biggest things that we've all talked about,
Happen overnight.
and I have some here, are feelings books, like giving them, y'all can like post these or something, right?
Yeah.
Giving them the vocabulary for what they're feeling, teaching them to listen to their body and to know their clues. Literally this morning, I was with the baby and my husband got her up. He said that she was screaming when he walked in. She wanted me, and he just let her calm down. And then she just calmed herself down. He just stayed calm and neutral. Hi, Reed. He stayed calm. He stayed neutral. And then he said that she goes, sorry, Daddy, I was screaming. It's really just because I'm hungry and I'm still a little tired. But I'll be okay.
Oh, that is so great.
I know. And so I really feel like this
Here yet, and my children are older than yours.
it has a body clues thing in there, and so we talk about it a lot. So I think that's another thing, along with being consistent about the structure. I totally agree, Marilee. They need to have those boundaries. They need to see us enforcing those boundaries and sticking to what we say. But we also need to give them as much of the language and the vocabulary as we can very consistently, so that, because we know the difference between screaming for a snack or whatever, what that does to us as parents, it makes us so frustrated, versus, can I please have that snack? I'm a little hungry. You're like, oh, well, yes, of course you can. Like it creates a different response in you. So the more we can fill them, and this is going back to what I was going to say earlier. It's not just even about chronological age. I think something I've learned working at a counseling center is paying attention to the emotional maturity, the emotional age of children. You might have a 10-year-old boy who you think, you don't need me to like cuddle like you on the couch. You don't need me to like speak, closely in your eyes or hold you or whatever. But emotionally, they might not have those words to internalize and explain. They might not have the ability to internalize like what they're really feeling is a need to be comforted. What they're really feeling as anxiety is a need for a parent to just help them feel safe and secure. And we just don't realize how much that is at our core to feel safe and secure. And so giving kids that, they're looking for that all the time. They not consciously, but literally that's like the job of our most primitive brain, is to just be scanning our environment for danger.
Yeah, I feel like especially right now, something that's so hard is trying, you're always there and you're trying to work in front of your children. And like you were saying earlier, Alice, like wanted your attention while you were on your phone. And that I feel like is so hard to be able to like create, I don't know, like boundaries or something to where, or figure out it space wise or time wise to like give your kids what they need. And obviously it depends. That quote that I love, is it Sally Clarkson? Like the kid that needs you, the child that acts out the most needs you the most. And that has, like, that's another one that just like plays in my mind, and I can tell when I just fill her cup, like intentionally, with intentional time, focused time, she's such a happier child. And then it allows me to have some of my own time or quiet time apart from her later.
Yes, absolutely. And I think going back to consistency and stuff, I think we also need to realize, like, right now, this is a lot of change for everyone. Parents are feeling stressed, kids are feeling stressed. They just don't know how to say it or communicate it as well as adults do. So they're going to be, you're likely going to be seeing that more through acting out behaviors and outbursts. But it doesn't mean like throw in the towel or just be permissive all the time. If you decide you want to set a boundary or a new way of like getting some work time or whatever, you just be consistent with it, and with the realistic expectation that it's not going to go perfectly in the beginning. But the more you're consistent with it, the more you can see the results you want. Granted, personally, I'm working through this right now because I'm kind of a constant playmate all day, and I want to move more toward independent play and not being 24/7 playmate.
For sure.
So I'm kind of figuring that out personally for us, what that looks like to be consistent and implement that in a way that she doesn't feel abandoned or rejected or confused, that I'm all of a sudden just changing my mind to not be playing with her. But in a process that, you know, we can both be flexible with. So
Yeah. Okay. Well, so to wrap up, Marilyn, sorry, you want to say something?
Flexible is so important because, you know, be flexible on the things that aren't really important.
Right.
Be very consistent on the things that are, and, you know, so that you're not just saying no, no, no. In fact, when my baby was growing up, there was a big deal about, do you childproof your house or do you not? And I just had this feeling that if he went to go get something, let's say he went to go get something that was a problem, I made the point to not say no. I'd go over, oh, isn't this wonderful? And we would look at it together. And if I didn't want him to have it, I would let him explore it until he was comfortable, and then very, you know, carefully move his mind's direction somewhere else, but not to let him feel like he couldn't explore. I did baby proof, but if he did see something that he wanted to go after and I didn't want to, it was all positive. So
Yeah. And that's like, yeah, like we've talked about, like pick your battles, you know, and sometimes, like, if you just let them, even for 5 seconds, like the other day we were walking down the street, and Reed really wanted to stand on this tree stump, and I really wanted to get home. And instead of just saying no, I was like, okay, for 5 seconds. And then I counted 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And then she jumped off and we went on our way. So sometimes I feel like just even giving her that quick satisfaction for a few seconds just like fulfills that need, versus her just hearing no all the time and then acting out.
Yeah.
it is so helpful to remember they're little people. So I mean, if we think about, like, if I was on my computer right now or on my phone and my husband just came in and snatched it away from me, like, obviously I would feel like disrespected and I would want to get defensive.
Exactly. I think that is something that's so important for me to remember, and to like remind Sam, for, you know, just basically just treat them how you would want to be respected, you know, and don't just snatch things from her. Like, I understand if she gets upset by that, or just, you know, wag your finger at her like she's a dog or whatever, you know, like talk to her. Anyway, y'all know this. Okay, so this was great.
So many things I want to talk about.
I know.
So many things to talk about.
We'll have to have more.
Yeah, but I know I need to run, and y'all probably do too, and we can just do more of these if we want to share more. But I mean, anything else y'all want to say real quick? Or thank you, Kristen, for getting on with us.
Thank you, Mary.
Yeah, I like feeling like I'm part of the French Basics
Yeah,
team.
she was our French Basics.
for a while, seeing the growth.
When we started the company, we were living with Kristen because she's just so small. She was our mascot.
Yeah, I don't even remember how that started.
We don't need to get into that. But no, I mean, just to wrap up, I would say, I think now is the time to, even though everyone's feeling stressed to the max in new ways, just really pay attention to what's going on inside of you as a parent. I think that even our counseling center, majority of the time parents bring their kids in thinking the problem is with their kids, and a lot of times they leave counseling realizing that they needed to do a lot of work on themselves to experience a more positive view of their child. And so, you know, tuning into what that is for you. I know for me, you know, having to set my agenda aside is what really triggers a lot of frustration in me. If I have in my mental to-do list of these things I was going to get done today and my child is interrupting that, then I am viewing them as a nuisance and as a burden to me, you know, disrupting my agenda. And so a lot of times that's when I step back and take on the big picture. So I think that's what I would just encourage everyone to do right now is, what's that big picture for you? Do you want to see your priority as raising, you know, your child feeling loved and connected to you, and seeing the honor and the privilege of raising them as one of your top priorities in life? Or, you know, it's just kind of stepping back and realizing, at least that's for me what helps put it in perspective.
No,
So
absolutely.
Kristen, I think on that, I know we need to go, but one of the things that's helped me and what I guess was a big deciding force in my husband and I figuring out whether we wanted to do cry it out or have our babies sleep on a really strict schedule or all the things was reading certain books and looking at certain studies on the brain and kind of what we've learned about, like you said, spanking and certain forms of discipline. Because like you said earlier as well, like intuitively, like, yeah, I want my kid to sleep 12 hours in 12 weeks, you know, but it's almost like the more that I was able to learn and read, like the more convicted I am about what I want the long-term outcome to be in that relationship between my child and myself. So all that to say, if you have any of like your favorite books or podcasts or favorite studies that you wanted to share, then I'm sure our audience would be like really receptive and excited about that.
Yeah. Right now, or
No, just, I mean, you know.
Just share them with us.
Well, yeah, share it.
Yeah, for sure. I think I do have some right now. I mean, I know I've showed y'all a few already, but I really do love the Whole Brain Child Workbook.
Oh, the workbook. Interesting.
I know. Honestly, I mean, it's worth getting the book because it lays the foundation. But honestly, I love the workbook because it really does address, and it has, you know, the cartoon stuff. So it's an easy, I think this kind of stuff is really helpful because you, even this, you don't have to necessarily read the whole book cover to cover. You can literally pick it up and read one page and just practice that for a week and really see so much difference. But this workbook does help address how were you parented as a child? What do you remember about those experiences? How did you feel when, you know, certain disciplinary actions were taken? Really putting yourself as a parent in those experiential moments to more easily relate to what your child is experiencing, while also bringing in the brain research to it. So I think in a lot of ways, for me as a parent, I realized, I think that it's kind of not a right message to say like, oh, well, just parent however. It's not our place to like tell people how to parent. There's no right way to parent. I think now with all of the neuroscience research that's come out in the past couple of years, there really is a way that we know leads to better psychological outcomes and behavioral outcomes and all of that. And so I think it is really worth challenging yourself right now to add some new tools to your tool belt, add some new strategies in there instead of just relying on a cycle of, you know, yelling or being frustrated and not seeing much change in your child. And so anyway, yeah, we could talk forever, but I do think I will definitely get some books, and the Jennifer Kolari podcast, I think they're so helpful. I mean, just little things I'll listen to, and she says things like, you know, to tell your child, I love you enough for you to be mad at me. Like, that is exactly what Marilee was talking about. A loving way to set boundaries, to establish the fact that you are the adult and the parent, and that they feel safe when you say that. They feel, oh, I don't have to take care of myself because she or he will take care of me. Then they can relax. And then out of a relaxed body state, they're going to have a much more clear mental state. So.
Love that. Okay.
Love it.
Sounds awesome.
Good way to end.
I mean, yeah, obviously there are so many specific scenarios and things like that, but I think, yeah, just that overall as a foundation is so key. And
all of you out there listening, send Kristen and Marilee every one of your specific situations.
Yeah.
In like 5-minute, 10-minute turnaround time.
Yeah.
Of course.
One consultation. No. Okay.
Yeah,
Well,
this is fun. I mean, I've learned so much. So if you're a parent out there who's like overwhelmed or whatever, feel like you're just messing up all the time, just don't let that shame cycle spiral. Just cut it off.
Kids are so forgiving and resilient too. It's like you said, like I did some things today that like definitely need to apologize to Sloan for. It's just like,
and that's the beauty of it, is you're gonna, if you take the time to apologize, if you take the time to ask for forgiveness and have that lesson, have that moment, you're teaching her such a valuable lesson. So that's why it's so good for us to remind ourselves there's no perfect parenting, and we're never gonna get it perfect. You're giving her the valuable lesson of learning that we make mistakes. They need to see us make mistakes. They need to see how we act upon our mistakes so that they can learn themselves how to do it. They don't just
modeling is the way they learn.
Yeah.
So, right? I mean, I always have to remind myself that.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Abandon your agenda. All right. Leave them with that.
Okay. Bye. This is fun.
Bye, guys.
Thank you all for having me.
All right.
Come in.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.